Good evening, friends and co-musicians. Welcome once again to another online workshop of Pambansang Samahan ng mga banda sa Pilipinas. That is PASAMBAP. And tonight, this is the 33rd webinar, which started last July. And the reason for this project is to give the musicians something to get by and to continue in developing their craft and musicianship through these workshops as we guest distinguished speakers who are knowledgeable and very experienced in their field of music. Tonight is Journeys with My Cello with Renato Lucas, the 33rd workshop online. Now, Maestro Renato, studied at University of the Philippines College of Music, San Francisco Conservatory of Music in USA, Royal Northern College of Music in England, Hochschule für Musik Detmold in Germany, and Universität der Kunst Berlin, Germany. So he has a wide range of education standards, as we say in music, and as a professional musician, he has performed with Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra as a principal cellist for 30 years, and he has been featured as soloist and conductor once in a while. Manila Symphony Orchestra, Manila Chamber Orchestra, Camerata Manila, Metro Manila Symphony Orchestra, ABS-CBN, Philharmonic, University of the Santo Tomas Symphony Orchestra, where he teaches also, Clarion Ensemble, Detmold Chamber Orchestra, ASEAN Symphony Orchestra, Hanoi Philharmonic Orchestra. That's a lot of orchestras that he has played with in his entire career and still continue to perform with different groups and orchestras. And he has performed in festivals in Cultural Center of the Philippines, Filipino Artist Series, Coke Balipata's Pundakit Arts Festival, the world famous Las Piñas Bamboo Organ Festival. And he has worked and performed with different artists like Ryan Cayabia, Basil Valdez, the Asia Pacific region, Mayra Beltran, Nonong Bencamino, Marilu Diaz-Abaya, Cecily Cad, Rachel Garadias, and this is just a few of those he has performed with, and the list continues to lengthen. And major performances also for as a cellist. He has played the Dvorak Cello Concerto with the State Philharmonic Brno Czechoslovakian, which featured Lucas in their Asian tour and as soloist of the PPO in their European and Japan tours. So aside from being a regular musician in the orchestra, he is also one of the best cello soloists in the Philippines and perhaps in the whole world. PPO's Homecoming One concert. This is a CD, I think. Brooks Call Nidre. Romanza album by Tawid Ivory with pianist Lauro Sunico, which received the 2006 Awit Awards for Best Instrumental Recording. Ginugunita Kita album by Jesse Lucas, Nonong Bencamino for Pinto Art Museum's Tamis Project. Jesuit Music Ministry albums, Gary Valenciano's Beyond Words album. Lucas currently holds an associate professorship at the University of Santo Tomas. He obtained his PhD in history from the USC Graduate School and is a senior research fellow at the university's Research Center for Culture and Arts and the Humanities. Now, a better way to get to know our artists is by listening to their performances. So sit back and enjoy one of the best performers, not only in conducting but also in cello playing, and listen to our very own Filipino compositions, which is our pride in music. There you are. You have heard Maestro Ato speak through music. Now let's hear him talk about his wonderful uh, journeys with his cello, and as he would talk about the experiences that no one can ever go through in music. So, Professor Maestro Ato, please take it away.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Magandang gabi po sa inyo at lahat ng sumusubaybay sa Pasambap. Unang-una, first of all, gusto kong pasalamatan kayo, Bombie, ang mga officers ng Pasambap. It's a privilege and an honor and privilege to be here, especially with Pasambap because one of my dissertation is about the founder of Pasambap, Felipe Padilla de Leon. So it was quite, when you invited me, of course, it's a privilege. Congratulations for this endeavor. Mabuhay kayo.
Yes, Maestro, just first of all, perhaps you would like to talk about cello music. You know, the cello is one of my favorite instruments, and sometimes I cannot explain why. It's just so enticing, so mesmerizing that can you sort of explain to us what a cello is and its music?
Well, cello is short for violoncello, which means violon during the Baroque era is like the ancestor of the contrabass. So it's more like a small contrabass rather than a large violin. You could see behind me, it's the case of the cello. And it is said that the cello, the most popular cliche is that it's closest to the human voice. And a lot of the cello music is sentimental, I suppose. Yeah, as opposed to, let's say, piano or violin. Most string players, yeah, quite sentimental. I think it stirs a lot of memories when we hear cello music. And of course, it's huge. The cello is relatively huge. One of the questions that interviewers ask me is why the cello? Because it's cool. The cello is cool. It's not so ordinary until Yo-Yo Ma made it very popular. When I carry my cello around with me, it gives me a chance to make friends with strangers. I found that out when I was traveling, wherever I go. So when I was young, I was a bit embarrassed to carry my cello around because during my time, to play a musical instrument, you are considered a nerd or weird. I hope it's not the case right now. So it's cool. Right now, carrying a musical instrument is cool. How many, especially perhaps in the pandemic, during the pandemic, I remember Mr. Endriga, the former president of CCP, called me, rang me and said, Renato, how are you? And I said, I'm fine. Thank you, Mr. Endriga. And Mr. Endriga told me, what keeps you busy? Well, aside from time with my family, it gave me time, more time with my cello. and it was quite a pleasure, considering the busy life musicians have before the pandemic.
Uh, Maestro, what was your first instrument before you played it?
Uh, uh, Piano.
Oh, I see.
Piano. Actually, when I was young, when I mean young, when I was in elementary, my sister taught me the piano. Yeah, my father plays the violin, but for hobby. My father, bingi yung tatay ko because of the war. One ear, no, but he plays the violin. So I suppose I was exposed to violin music. But my all of my sisters, no, all of my sisters had lessons piano. By the time by when it's my turn, the piano teacher left, so it was my sister who taught me. And you know the piano pieces, the John Thompson book. Yeah, the John Thompson book. I remember one of my favorite was the Mozart. Uh, what's titled? Ta-di-dun, dun, dun, ta-di-dun, dun, dun. Yeah.
The
So it
sonatina. Yeah.
was. It's one of the movements from the simplified version, and it awakened me to the magic to the magic of music. Yeah. When you ask me about title, remember Bombie? You asked me what title. I said Travels with My Cello. Travels with My Cello is not just the places that I went to, yeah, but the places that I went through inside. Inside, music brings us everywhere. Especially, I think in this pandemic, music is relevant. We could travel without going around with music. Yeah.
Yeah, in that line of thought, what made you decide to learn the cello or to really
Well,
take
like
cellos?
a lot of musicians whose parents are lovers of music, I can tell that my mother forced me.
Also, you
I
were forced.
remember your interview with Hernani, with John Cuenco.
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite typical. But no regrets, because I think it's not really forcing, but exposing us to music. Because when we are young, we have no idea what we like. We get exposed to it, and my mother brought us to Pasaknungan. Pasaknungan is a school for like a Suzuki. It antedates Suzuki, I suppose, the Suzuki school. Every every Sunday we go to Nayong Filipino, where we are taught cello, violin, and we interact with our with fellow young musicians, children, yeah. And it was quite a happy time, because interacting with there's no pressure. There was no pressure. Yeah, if there are any pressures, maybe just following the beats
And
of
you
Professor Sales during that time. Yeah,
and you were playing the cello already in
I was
Pasaknungan.
playing the cello already, and my first teacher was Ricardo Kamahalan, who's a trombone player from Imus.
How
The
many
late,
cellists were you during that time?
uh, I think about 5 or 6.
That was plenty already,
That's
considering the cello
plenty.
is not a very famous instrument at that
Yeah,
time.
it's quite yeah, I remember yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Being
and I met you in PYO, Philippine Youth Orchestra, and we were lucky to have 10, sometimes 12 cellos, or 10,
Mhm.
8 to 10 cellos, yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah. So it was that was the and then until there was one professor, I'm sure the late Professor Celso Estrella, the
Australia.
viola. No, so from Pasaknungan, he sort of picked musicians for chamber music, and then brought us to PYO. introduced us to Professor Esmilia. Well, aside from Professor Estrella, my other teacher was Modesto Maiquez, one of the senior musicians then of the Manila Symphony Orchestra, and also a friend of Professor Esmilia. So that was the time that we were brought to PYO. Yeah. And by that time, we were there already, Professor Esmilia. We are grateful. I'm sure you are grateful too to Professor Esmilia, the late Professor Esmilia. Mhm.
Yes, and then of course your career continued on from that point into being professional. So how did this happen?
Uh, I like the word career. Well, if you are young, um, I'm not thinking of career. I'm just thinking of the music making, the the f- the fun and the fulfillment. You know, when you are young. Uh, I'd like to use the word struggle because when I when I was in fourth year high school, uh, my third teacher, Herminia Atienza Ilano, went to Singapore. Singapore Symphony was founded, and there are no cello teachers during my time. Yeah, Martiniano Esguera was the principal of the CCP Philharmonic then, the antecedent of the Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra. In one of the music camps in Makiling, you remember that? We had a culminating concert of chamber music. One of the numbers was a piano trio with Rowena Arrieta, the Tchaikovsky laureate, and Joseph Esmilia, our kababata. And in the audience was Professor Luis Valencia, the founder of the PPO, the CCP Philharmonic was the name then. And the next day, or maybe a couple of days after, Professor Valencia called up my mother and recruited me, invited me to join the Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra. I just graduated from high school then. So, and then I also enrolled at the UP Conservatory of Music. Uh, I'm not sure if that's a twist of fate to join the Philharmonic Orchestra. I really didn't audition. I suppose that during that time, I didn't mean that I'm a very good cellist then. I suppose the Philharmonic really need members during that time. And I was the youngest member of the orchestra. I was around 15 and a half during that time. And I was enrolled at the UP. After months of being in the Philharmonic, it was difficult for me. I was rehearsing from 8:30 to 11:30 in the morning, and then I commute to UP. I have a class at 1, which finishes at 5, and the performances of the Philharmonic then were like 2 to 3 times a week. It came to a point that I asked my mother I wanted to stop working because I just wanted to study. But I guess that was the time that my father retired, and it was a time of financial insecurity on my part. So I just went ahead with what life brought me. Yeah. For a young person to have that income, that's the happy part. For a young person to be exposed to guest conductors and to soloists, that was my schooling, the Philharmonic. I have no teacher, so I just continued my studies at UP for 2 years. Another twist of fate happened. San Francisco Opera came around late, when was
80s.
that? Yeah, 1980. And of course, me and my enthusiasm interviewed one of the members and inquired if there are possibilities of studying in the United States. During that time, there were no internet, there were no emails. Yeah, so the address was given to me. So I wrote. Uh, I got accepted, and then my mother accompanied me. I was clueless what's ahead. So it was another challenge because as soon as my mother accompanied me to the San Francisco, she left for another state, and I was alone there. She went to some of our relatives. Nag-TNT siya doon. Nag-TNT siya. So I was left alone. No tuition to pay. I was in the kindness of my relatives. To make the long story short, I applied for a partial scholarship and got accepted. But the living expense was it was a dark period of my life because it was a struggle, but I suppose that was a learning period. Uh, After 2 years, I had a hard time surviving. So I said, my life in the Philippines, I had a job. I went back. I went back to PPO. I continued my schooling on and off because of the work at the Philharmonic. And then PPO was reorganized. Professor Yatko came, Oscar Yatko. And my schooling continued until I think uh, one time CCP sent me to a conference. It's a First World Cello Congress in Washington D.C. So there I was. It was heaven because the gods of the cello world were there. It was organized by Rostropovich and all the gods, Tchaikovsky winners. It was a meeting of 200 cellists uh, 1 week. And I found my teacher there. I was watching a performance and I said, that's the person I'd like to be. Her name is Karina Georgian. She's Russian. Yeah. So I wrote during that time, Goethe Institute. Remember Uwe Schmelter? Yeah, Uwe Schmelter, the director of Goethe Institute, was active in sending in pestering us to study in Germany. And Dr. Feliciano too was our resident conductor then. He was a scholar in alumni of German Academic Exchange. I applied for German Academic Exchange. Uh, well, to your disappointment, I did not get accepted my first time. I think John Fernandez. So it was quite a disappointment. Considering uh, I'd like to call it tenacity of the spirit. After 1 week, I collected my spirit and continued with PPO, with the Philharmonic. I applied again the next year. I got accepted. So I went to Detmold, studied the language for 6 months in Goethe Institute Freiburg, and then I went to Detmold. Fortunately, in Detmold, an old friend of PPO, Christoph Poppen, teaches there, violinist Christoph Poppen, and he was very helpful. Yeah, so finding a place, and he recruited me to the chamber orchestra, Death Mode Chamber Orchestra. It was a semi-professional orchestra composed of students, which toured Western Germany then. So it was quite an eye opener to see Germany then. I trained in a Russian teacher where the lesson was just fantastic or horrible, nothing in between. So it taught me the value of hard work. You know, if you do have no teacher, you develop all the bad habits in playing. Well, I did not regret that, because when I started teaching, I went through all the bad habits that I can I can possibly do playing the cello. Yeah, I'm not recommending it to teachers to have bad habits, but I guess it's one of those fortunate, uh, unfortunate incidents that can be fortunate. Yeah. So after that, there was a tragedy in the family. I did not extend my scholarship, so I went back to the Philippines. So it was a year of regret because I could have extended my studies in Germany. But looking back, it's sometimes we do not, even if we chart our life, sometimes things happen. So after that, I don't know what was because of my frustration. Uh, I search again for opportunities. Yeah. Well, it is not that I am not. It is not that I am unhappy here in the Philippines. It is just that maybe I'm ambitious. When I mean ambitious, I do not mean that in a negative sense. I mean that in a positive sense. I knew that there are possibilities, more possibilities for me to continue what I started. So I went. During that time, there was a British Council. British Council was also active in scholarship programs, and I was fortunate and applied. So I went to the Royal Northern College of Music, where for 6 months I was a fellow in cello and conducting. Uh, After I finished that, I went back home, and I have some degree of contentment. I resumed teaching. Well, in between I was teaching. In between I taught at UP, and then after 2 years, the late Dean Alejandra Atabug recruited people from the Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra to teach at the University of Santo Tomas. And from then on, I was teaching at the University of Santo Tomas Conservatory of Music off and on for the past 35 years or so. 35 years. Yeah, so that was and the journey did not end there. Uh, why am I telling this? Because it's quite a challenge to be a musician in the Philippines. Challenge because there are so many talents in the Philippines, and sometimes talents that are not nurtured, it does not extend to its full potential. So that's the context of my narrative. Uh, I think I stayed very long with the Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra. My children were growing up, and it is too much physical work for me to teach full-time and work with the Philharmonic full-time. So I retired early and went full-time teaching. I think I had a burnout. I had a burnout after being a musician for many, many years. So what I did was, I remember Dr. Feliciano's, when he was still alive, Dr. Feliciano said, uh, as much as possible, I travel. And it is my form of recharging your spirit. Yeah. So when I felt my burnout, I we as a scholar of German academic exchange program, we are privileged to reapply for a study visit. So I went back to Germany for half a year, continued my studies not only in cello but in conducting and in arts management. Yeah, managing more on an observation tour. So when I went back, it was true enough. I was recharged. It gave me the uh, the energy and the enthusiasm to teach some more and to perform some more, which I've been doing for the past decades. Until NAMSHA came, the National Music Competitions for Young Artists. Uh, all those years, when I went back, Dr. Santos recruited me to be part of the Board of Trustees of NAMSHA until the Secretary General of NAMSHA had the term was over and recommended me to head NAMSHA during that time, which was starting to disintegrate somehow because of organizational purpose. Well, I do not want to take credit. It was fortunate because it gave me a chance to pay back for all the blessings and opportunities that was afforded me all my years as a musician. And with NAMSHA, I realized that we have a lot of talents. One time we had a special competition of symphonic bands about 3 years ago. And it was quite exciting because associating with NAMSHA connected me with all sorts of musicians. I remember the term because band musicians were telling me stories about musico and musikero. Have you heard that story, Bombie? Yeah, I think it was Lucio San Pedro who invented musico. Well, I'd like to discuss that because I disagreed with the late Lucio San Pedro as a as a as a as an associate professor of cultural history. It has a negative connotation because Professor Lucio San Pedro tried to delineate formally trained musicians with informally trained musicians. Hindi ba? Yung musiko raw, aral. Yung musikero, ang tawag doon, widow, hindi gaanong aral. So for me, when I teach music history, I said, there is no such thing. There is no such delineation between musiko and musikero. But right now, I suppose the original meaning got lost. And musiko, musikero, for me, it's the same. Yeah, for me, it should be it should be the same. There should be no discrimination among musicians, regardless of social status, educational status, economic status, etc., etc. I noted that in. I said I will mention that in the interview, Bombie.
Can you somehow, yes, you've talked about your exciting journeys in different parts of the world through music and your cello and with your cello. Now, can we bring your journey deep into the music? Okay, there are a lot of beautiful music for cello, like you have Dvorak, Lalo, and of course Bach. Since the time of
Yeah,
Bach, we're already cello music, right?
of
So
course.
what's your favorite cello piece, solo cello piece?
Just mention it.
All of
Johann
it?
Sebastian Bach.
Ah, okay. So which one?
Yeah, all of it. The
All
six
of all of
suites.
the sonata.
The six suites of Bach.
Uh-huh.
The three gamba sonatas of Bach.
Uh-huh.
Uh, all the cantatas of Bach. Well, I don't know everything. All the Brandenburg concertis of Johann Sebastian Bach. The favorite literature is difficult. Uh, it's an unfair thing to disregard the others. Beethoven, of course. I think it's more my orientation with the symphony orchestra. It's not the solo cello thing. It is the emancipation of the cello that Beethoven did. You know, Bombie, you're a bassoon player. You know that that playing the bass, we are discriminated with melody playing instruments. But I always tell my students in history music that in the Baroque music, the most important elements are the outer lines. So Baroque music is called the age of the basso continuo, and it's an art in itself to play basso continuo. It's not easy. So Bach, because Bach is like a complete diet of music. It has all the elements of the psychomotor skills or the mechanical, the technique, and it has all the elements of musicianship that one can learn. Yeah, I cannot believe that Bach existed as a human being. He's quite a busy person. He had a wife. He became a widow, and he had so many children with his second wife, Anna Magdalena, and I don't know how he did it to have all that output in his life. You know how much output Bach did? There was one advertisement in a German magazine. If a modern copyist will write all the works of Bach, it will take him by mano mano. It will take him, I think, about 70 years. 70 years to write all the music of Bach. And of course, there are many other composers. One of my projects now is transcribing music from the masters to the cello. Because in this pandemic, in fact, I just finished recording poetry and music of short pieces for the cello. Some of them are transcriptions. Because for the layman, I call some classical music as hardcore classical music. It requires some introduction to be able to do this. And of course, I did a CD with Dr. Raul Sunico of Filipino cello music, original and transcriptions. Well, the music is already pirated in YouTube, but At this point, I don't mind, but my children are telling me that, Papa, you should protect your intellectual property on this. Yeah. Um,
Well,
yeah.
well, the cello, of course, we're in a pasambap, no? Pambansa
Yeah.
sa mga banda sa Pilipinas.
Yeah.
And we invite lots of speakers of different genres, of different fields in music, different instruments, may it be wind, strings. But the cello
That's why I
is,
was curious why you invited me.
well, because of your knowledge and your experience. As you
I was
said,
thinking
musicians,
how shall I connect with the with Pasambap?
well, as you said earlier, that
Yeah.
musicians is one breed. There's no
Yeah.
discrimination. So
Yeah.
there you are. You're talking to us. You're sharing your knowledge, your experience to help other musicians, especially band musicians, to develop themselves further, especially during this time of pandemic. Now,
Yes.
the cello is comparative to what we call
Baritone.
the bass line. Yes, baritone. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
baritone.
That's right.
Yeah.
Baritone and sometimes a trombone, and sometimes
Yeah.
we have the basunder and even the tenor sax
Yeah, the
would
saxophone.
imitate the cello. Now,
Yeah.
if I were a wind instrument, why? Tell me some reasons why I will choose cello as my other instrument.
Because it's sexy. When I mean sexy, it's the sensation of the cello is very inviting. It's very inviting. I think the cello tells a lot of stories, sad stories, happy stories. Uh, um, that's a hard question. That's a hard question. It's cool. I think I chose the cello not because it sounds nice. I chose the cello because it's huge. Yeah. I tried playing the violin. It's pardon my tabi-tabi po sa mga violinista, but it's hard. I mean I'll tell you a story about violin and Coke Bolipata. If you listen to a Suzuki playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, after 1 hour, you would want to leave the strains of the A string and the E string of the violin. It sounds horrible for the beginner sounds. Yeah. Well, I don't know how to answer your question because I think it also depends on your experiences. We have visually, I think the cello is look at my behind. Yeah,
Okay.
it looks like a mummy, case of a mummy tomb. That's why when I walk, children are curious. What's inside the cello? There's a mummy inside the cello. Just to just to arouse the curiosity of children. So I open the case and they are surprised. Oh, it's a big violin. Yeah. So yeah, the cello.
Yes, I have been observing since college times, no, since the conservatory times, that the cellists, when they play, they embrace the instrument.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of emotion goes through that already. Embrace it. And I can see that when you play your instrument, you become immersed in this emotion of the music that you play. Maybe because of the vibration of the instrument directly onto your body. Is that one of the
No,
reasons?
I think it's more the coordination thing. We become immersed in the instrument. I mean, when you see NPYO, because we look at Professor Esmilia, uh, we maintain our balance. So if you are a beginner cellist or an intermediate cellist or any string instruments, you are immersed in your instrument and you have to maintain your balance. Yeah, you are only in your what you're saying, you're immersed in your instrument. If you are, meron tayong salita dyan paggamay mo na yung instrumento. But in between playing, one of my lecture is what happens when we play. To think or not to think when we play. There are moments when we play that we are thinking and we are not thinking. When we practice, when I mean we practice, when we rehearse, that's the time that we encode. To use the modern term in computer. We encode it in our fingers, we encode it in our brain. And then during the rehearsal, more encoding. And during the performance, we just press buttons to the performance. Sometimes we think very fast, millisecond, so that all the things that we encode comes out during the performance. I think that's what you mean, that we are immersed in what we are doing. Yeah, you should know that, Bombi, hindi ba? We are just not aware. We are not that aware what is happening inside us when we perform. Yeah, so
Yeah, it's like what Professor Esmilla used to say during a rehearsal, that what you do in the rehearsal is what you're going to do in the performance.
yes,
So you better
yeah.
make it good during rehearsal.
So make all the mistakes during the rehearsal. But I remember I always tell this to my students. Mistakes allowed during lessons, but not too much of them. Pwedeng magkamali, pero ang goal mo, pinakakonting pagkakamali na pwede mong gawin. I remember, Professor Esmilla is a very hard professor. I'm sure you know that. Very demanding pitch. But I'd like to tell our audience that sometimes we classical musicians are very hard on ourselves. We are very hard. I learned that in one of the workshops by a jazz musician. Yeah. When we make some minor mistakes, we dwell on it so much. So that's the importance of practicing. That's one of the lessons. Yeah. If we make because perfection. I think we strive not for perfection, but only close to perfection. Something that we can achieve as musicians. Yeah. Sometimes, pero there must be limits to our that we should be not too easy on ourselves. Strive for the best, and then during the performance, try to remember what we wanted to achieve. Yeah.
Yes, and earlier you were talking about your struggles and the difficulties and the hardships of becoming a musician, or let's say maybe a cello player. But I remember during our time in the Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra that you still had the energy to be part of the administrative side of the orchestra. Like you were part of this committee, artist committee,
Yeah.
whatever
I was
committee.
chairman for many
Yes,
years.
and you've been no doing a lot of things beyond being a musician. So how can you do this? And you even became the head of the NAMSHA, the National Artist Music Competition.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, youth NAMSIA, yes. And yes, NAMSIA is totally different facet of the music side
Yeah.
of you, right? Being the head. Isn't this really difficult? I mean, you get lots of events to come on to, and you have a very big responsibility on your shoulders, being a
Well,
head of NAMSIA.
first of all, during PPO's time, I think we call it passion. It's not just the passion of music playing. it's a passion of camaraderie. Yeah, because you know, I read an article about symphony musicians that the level of happiness, the happiness of symphony musicians is like that of is very low, because we do not assert what that much. We are under the dictatorship of the conductor, the artistic dictatorship, to borrow the term, of the conductor. So sometimes we cannot express our individuality in the orchestra. And PPO during that time had a lot of, I can feel the stress, the tensions, interpersonal tensions of musicians during that time. And I thought that to have this communication, well, hindi naman maaalis yung interpersonal tension. That's our way of, yeah, we have dealt this, Bombi. So to make our lives more personally bearable during that, we are happy when we are playing. But when we are not playing, I'm not saying we are unhappy, but we wanted to sustain. See, happiness is not permanent; it's a fleeting. Yeah, so it's our passion to make our lives better. Yeah, not just economically, but socially. See, those are happy times when we organize our, especially when we had our tours. I remember Professor Yatko saying that it's important when we go to the provinces that we have a one-day tour of the places that we go, because that's the time that musicians get to know each other. Yeah. As regards Namsha, as I told you earlier, it's a payback. I remember the story when I was riding a taxi. Ah, sabi nung sabi ko sa taxi, hindi ba kayo napapagod, Manong? Kasi matanda na yung taxi driver. No, hindi naman matandang-matanda. Alam mo, pag sumakay ka ng taxi, halos buong buhay nila, kinikwento na nila sa'yo. Sabi sa akin ng taxi driver, napapagod ako. Pero, tinutulog ko lang yung pagod ko. Sabi niya. So with Namsha, it's tiring. It's really tiring. But the rewards of cultural management far outweigh the physical the physical the physical toils that require of cultural administration. And one thing about administration is that you have to pick the right people, because you know, in this world, no man is an island. You cannot do all the work alone. So it's a matter, it's like a symphonic band, it's like an orchestra. It's we delineate work. You should know that, running pasambap, delineation of duties. So there are no secrets. I think I'm not that young, Bombi. I'd like to consider myself young. I remember si Rodel revealed his age. Well, Rodel Colmenar. Well, I'm younger than Rodel. I'll keep your audience guessing how young I am. So that's it. I think my musicians never retire. We just slow down, I suppose. Yeah. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, yes, of course, of course. There are a lot more questions, especially regarding Namsia. No, like, yes, we can talk about that in a different venue,
Yeah.
but it's something like, you had these categories, A, B, C, that a certain category will compete on this year. The following year will be category B and then category C. And I've heard lots of reactions wherein I was not able to, not me, no, but a student would say that he was not able to join the NAM shop because it's always off his age
Yeah,
bracket.
you know,
So, yeah, isn't that
I know that.
a pity? I mean,
Before it's ABC.
yeah,
It's based on elementary, high
based
school,
on
and
based on age, yes.
so about 4 years ago, I changed that. I
You
made that
changed really.
into senior and junior.
Senior and junior.
Yeah, so young and something like the demarcation is something like 18 and 18 to 30 and 0 to 18 or 19. So the Coke Bolipata mentioned that to me. So too young to join the C and then too old to join.
The A.
And I that thing solved the
Okay. That's a
so
good. Yeah.
nobody is complaining now.
So
I've
nobody
learned,
misses the competition.
yeah, nobody misses the competition
Ah,
anymore. If ever that is beyond me because sometimes the other complaint, well, it's not really a complaint. One of my frustrations running the Namsha is the woodwinds and the brass. See, one time I couldn't put a woodwind junior category in a brass junior category years back because in the band training, the band tradition in the Philippines, there is a huge gap between the conservatory level and the band. Yeah, if you are a member of a band and you play the clarinet, and then you go to the conservatory, yeah, there is a big gap here on literature, on the repertoire that you played. But I think now it's more. I had I made a mistake of waiting. I said, let us wait for the musicians to evolve. And one guitar professor, Ruben Reyes, told me, yeah, you shouldn't wait. You should make them catch up. You should make these young musicians catch up with this gap. Yeah. So this year, I think this year we have a or last year we started with the senior brass, and then we will open up junior brass and junior woodwinds. I hope that's a right decision for me to be able to, yeah, without making the requirements for the competition too easy and not too hard for musicians to join. Yeah, so that's my next step
yeah,
with the brass.
that's a good thing, and a lot of musicians salute the Namsha for the different projects that it comes on with, and not only on competitions, but you had workshops before, and
Yeah,
that's a good thing. Yes, and that's also preparing these musicians towards a competition actually.
yeah. I think you know the situation nationally. Deaf ed teachers are always asking me, we have a lot of musicians, in our provinces, but we do not have teachers. When teachers, they do not mean classroom teachers, they mean individual teachers. So I suppose the responsibility rests on us, Bombi. Like Pasambap, right now, online lessons, I think we should partner, Bombi. We are partnering with a lot of guilds to uh, to do this. So I'm glad that I have been partnering with you face to face with Mr. Constantino and Ralph
Of
Ralph
company. Yeah.
Ocampo, yeah, Ralph Campo, yeah. So these are the things that we can do as musicians, as teachers, as cultural workers. We are called cultural workers in this aspect. Yeah, to have lessons. Yeah, we also do that with rondalia. Yeah, because the band and the rondalia are grassroots endeavor. Yeah, so each town in the Philippines. Well, I hope we could have another session in this, Bombi, as regards how
Sure.
yeah, as
Yes.
regards how we can assist the Department of Education regarding informal and non-formal education. A lot of the students are at home, and during our time, it's very difficult to get materials to play. Di ba, Bombi?
Not so easy. One click.
Yeah, now it's easy. You can call your friends and send you materials, and our tribe, konti pa rin tayo, hindi ba, Bombi? Our tribe in the Philippines with the brain drain, etc., etc. A
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
they're
Filipino
very few.
musicians go abroad. I mean,
Yeah,
we cannot blame them. Yeah? So we should
yeah.
establish work.
We have also discussed this education side of music with the PMEs, and
Yeah.
that's their main concern now is that there are very few there are very few music teachers that are graduate.
Yes.
Or there are many that graduate, but they go abroad. They
Yeah.
turn OFW, and no,
Yeah.
very few is left here in the Philippines to really continue the teaching of music and developing music as well. So that's a whole big scenario of our concerns in the development of music here in the Philippines. Yes, thank you very much for the invitation of partnering with you
I think we should take
regarding
advantage. We should take
regarding project.
advantage of this
Yes.
online thing. I'm afraid to ask because I watched some of your Facebook live broadcasts, and one of your questions was, what is your advice to musicians who are challenged in the pandemic?
Okay, what's your advice?
That is a difficult question.
I'm sure you
Uh,
can answer that.
that is a very, very difficult question. So it took me many nights to until until I saw a video in Singapore. I'm not sure if you've seen it. There was an opera, a young opera conductor Singaporean who had a career in Majinsky Theater, big time. So when the pandemic closed, he he applied to be a Grab driver of delivering food in Singapore. He's very famous now in Singapore. So I followed what he was saying, and I commented on the Facebook post, and I said, I admire this young fellow because that's what I learned when I was a student in America. The dignity of labor. The dignity of labor. Yeah. When I was a student in America, you know how I survived besides playing gigs? I drew posters for recitals, manual. And then a lot of students learned that I drew caricatures of recital. Some of the things I saw was there was one rondalia musician who started selling music online publications, and I think I saw that in your account, distributing music to be played. So he was selling, distributing music of Alfredo Buenaventura and rondalia music, selling music online, you know. So when you post that question to me, I said, what would I do myself if I encounter that situation? I was fortunate because I'm in the academe. You know, we continue teaching online. Yeah, so I guess I will do the same. Yeah, I will sell food online. I will I will ask my friends uh, to buy for me. Because sino ba ang magtutulong-tulungan, hindi ba? Kundi tayo-tayo, no? And I interviewed one taxi driver. I said, "Paano po kayo nag-survive nung pandemic?" Sabi niya, aside from yung bayanihan na binigay sa kanila, sabi niya, nung nalaman daw ng mga kaibigan niya, merong mga abot-abot, no? So, nagulat ako because there are a lot of fundraising, no? There are many kind souls, no, without Bombie, I'm a professional beggar. I beg for namshia. I call myself a professional beggar. So I just like to believe that this is a temporary situation, and that's what this Singaporean guy did. So after this pestilence, I'm sure that I can slowly go back to what I've been doing. So there is hope that we can do this. Right now, my even before the pandemic, I plant. I have a pocket garden here. Maybe I will sell plants. Maglalako siguro ako ng halaman. Magtitinda ako ng pagkain. Siguro maghaharana ako online. During Valentine's, I remember in UP during Valentine's, they advertise harana. May they hire music students para haranahin yung mga nililigawan, no? So see, online harana, we can make videos and maybe advertise it, personalize music for ngayon ko lang naisip yun, ngayon ko lang naalala ko ano yung mga nangyayari ng estudyante ako. Well, the creativity of musicians are endless. Like I don't know how you sustain PASAMBAP. Well, you can answer that in another occasion. We could share our arts management skill. Arts management is hard sell. It's hard sell. We call it. Ikaw, how do you answer that question?
This is one of
Babalik ko sa iyo yung tanong.
this is one of the answers already that we have been doing. We've been doing online, everything online. Like we do meetings online. We have these webinars, and this will teach a lot of our musicians,
Yeah.
and a lot of our co-musicians would also be able to share their knowledge, their expertise, and continue in encouraging our musicians to
Dignity
further
of
develop.
labor. I'd
Even
like to emphasize that.
Yes.
Dignity of labor. Yeah.
Now, maybe we should really get into promoting online performances. What's only lacking is, yeah, you're right, supporters, and we need professional
How to monetize them.
how to monetize and how to get a sponsor really to support our projects online. And we need you as a professional burger on that.
Well, maybe we should find a better term for that. Because during the Renaissance, a lot of musicians, a lot of teachers do that. When you have music lessons, in exchange for music lessons, you have services. It's called apprenticeship. Yeah, magle-lesson ka sa akin, pero linisan mo yung bahay ko. O tulungan mo ako sa... That is a tradition. That is a tradition during the Baroque era.
Yeah.
To teach music. Yeah, so...
And that can be done online as well.
Yeah, and even maybe slowly when we do face-to-face. I hope with the coming of the vaccine, we have hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope should remain. Hope should remain because if we lose our hope, uh, you know, something with and we should talk like
Yeah.
this.
Of
We should
course.
talk. We should talk to fellow musicians, sharing our joys and miseries. Misery loves company, and it helps to talk about our. I mean, hindi man lang siya ma-monetize, but at least we need this kind of a mental health support for musicians in this time of pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, perhaps even after the pandemic times, this medium will continue to
Oh
prosper.
yes, it's called
Yeah,
hybrid.
that's right.
Hybrid. Yeah, we will never
So,
go back. We will never go back. But
and this,
we have to go back to live performances.
yes, of course, live performance is an essential thing because
Yeah.
it's different to feel the music live than just hearing
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Hearing music through gadgets will just give you the sound, but when you're
Mm,
there on a live performance, you feel the music, you feel the true vibration of the music, right?
yeah.
But then, of course, this is not a bad thing, being able to communicate,
Oh
to come to
yes, of
performances, being
course.
able to deliver it to the entire world is
Mm,
really something different, a different medium that I think we should accept and be able to develop. And this is one of the reasons why we have these webinars and we have these virtual collaborations. Well, Maestro Ato, thank you very much for your time, your
oh,
knowledge, and your experience. A lot of musicians would benefit from this very much.
oh,
And
before I forget, I mentioned earlier that I had burnout. That's one of the reasons why I went back to school to take up a graduate school. You might be asking why I took up history because there is no humanities program that and I think online now there are a lot of things that we can explore to I was reading Strad magazine. There was a depressing news there, but I'm not sure it might be it's something like 70% of musicians during this pandemic change careers. I hope temporarily. I hope temporarily. That's what. So no, thank you very much for inviting me. I hope I gave my humble piece of. I'm a bit worried because the bio data I sent you was a bit. I parang mayabang, hindi ba?
it was so informative. I mean, at least it showed that musicians can do well in their field.
That's why I initially sent you a short bio data, remember? Wala siyang laman. Yeah. So I said I gave you a long biography just for your reference. Yeah, I was shocked that you showed everything.
Well, it has to be shown. It has to be shown. That's the only way we encourage our fellow musicians to continue on striving even during these times of pandemic.
Yeah.
Well, Maestro Ato, again, thank you very much. Right.
Thank you for calling me maestro.
Well, not a maestro.
It was
By
quite an honor
definition,
to be called maestro. I never call myself maestro because I think it's only other people who should call you maestro.
no, no. Maestro, what is the definition of a maestro? Is a teacher, the one
Yeah,
who
but
teaches. So when
maestro
we
is like
teach,
sensei.
yes, we become
Yeah,
maestro already.
yeah.
Okay, so
It's an
that's
honorific.
not,
It's an
yeah.
honorific title to be called maestro.
It's more of a responsibility to be called maestro. Okay. All right. So once again, thank you very much, Mr. Maestro Ato. Do not leave after our live so that we can have a picture.
Well, you owe me one because in one of the NAMSHA workshops, I'm going to invite Pasambap.
No problem.
Uh,
Pro-
I'm going
As
to
long as
invite,
we're in,
yeah.
as long as we're in the proper protocol of the pandemic, no problem.
Yeah. No,
Yes,
online,
we can
online.
do it. Yes, fine.
Yeah, so this is a
Yeah.
revelation to me. I know what you are doing. I'm very familiar with Pasambap. I follow all the guilds in music, and we plan to formalize our relationship with the music guilds.
Okay, that would be
As
nice.
institutional members of NAMSIA.
Okay, this is just the tip of the iceberg that we're talking about, and I've talked with other organizations, and they'd like the tie-up as well, and so let's go and have a big one,
Yeah, yes.
involving almost all of our musicians.
Yes, yeah, yeah. That's what we
Okay,
need. Yeah.
well,
Great.
with that in mind,
Congratulations. Congratulations, Bombi. Send my congratulatory messages to everyone in Pasambap. And I'm sure Professor Padilla de Leon, Felipe Padilla de Leon Sr. now is smiling that you've managed to sustain the spirit of Pasambap. Thank you very much, and
thank
good
you very
evening to
much. Thank you
everyone.
very much for those nice words, and we continue on. And here's another glimpse of Professor Ato, Maestro Ato. There you are with the student, and not a he's a very familiar face. You get to know him once you meet him in the streets. You know it's him with that smile of his. And he's such a very good person, and his career, or let's say his passion, is just for the music.
Feel free to
And
contact me at
yes,
NAMSIA.
oh,
Yeah, the email is in the website.
I'm sorry. We were supposed to have answer question program, but since I've been asking you the questions already, I think that will suffice. But for those who have more questions,
Yeah, send me.
they
Send it to me
can
directly.
they can do it online. So it's okay if I send them your link
Yes.
to your
Yes.
sites. Okay, thank you
Yes.
very much for that, and expect those questions to be on your monitor of your laptop the soonest as they come in. And our webinar schedule, we have come up with a series already because a lot of schedules have been coming in. So we have the Philippine Festival series commemorating all the festivals and celebrating them online. If we cannot go to the provinces or to the bayan to celebrate the festival, they're here. Then here in Pasambap, online workshops, we will feature them for you. And of course, we have the Maestro series like tonight. And the first of our Maestro series is Professor Ato Lucas. And we have the TOYM series. And this is initiated, or our first one will be on the last week of March. And of course, in detail, March 20, we have the Tagum Festival, and March 27, Gerard Salonga of the TOYM awardee. We have Chito Sakdalan as a maestro, also Chino Toledo, Dean Raul Sunico, Ray Abellana, Tony Meige, San Isidro Labrador Feast, and Coke Bulipata will be coming on board as well, and Grace Nono on June 12. So watch out for these webinars. They are very informative and very exciting as well, and we hope to keep you tuning in to our online workshops. And our future speakers are the same list as we have been running through the past months, and we are hoping to get them on board and guest in our online workshops. And if you want to observe and learn from us, just tune in to Pasambap Live every Saturday at 8 o'clock p.m. If you're not able to catch this or late, and then you can go to Pasambap Banda, our account in YouTube. And once you get there, just click on the playlist right here. All right, click on the playlist so that it shows you the folders of our programs. We have competitions, we have performances, and we have workshops. So it will be easier for you to locate what you're looking for. And one of these are are our virtual collaborations, which was posted on PASAMBAP in different occasions. Like this one is the Valentine presentation of PASAMBAP. All right, so that was what we call the new normal way of presenting through virtual performances. And be a member of PASAMBAP, just submit your name, location, profile history, and make yourselves be known. And of course, here is where we build our camaraderie through friendship, teamwork, and unity. Teamwork is very important here, and friendship. Of course, all of these bullets are very important in achieving this camaraderie. And so when you join the PASAMBAP, the question will be, what can I contribute to PASAMBAP? Okay, that's a very basic thing for us to keep our organization running. Sharing knowledge and techniques and experiences is what we get here in PASAMBAP, like tonight with Professor Maestro Renato Lucas. And of course, if you need support, or if you want to give support, here is your chance in PASAMBAP by sharing your materials and even manpower. Like in our virtual presentations, manpower is just shared. These are all advocacies. And of course, here we have the opportunity to learn as we are educated, and we have opportunities for education as well, the formal education, and of course, opportunities for livelihood, especially during the pandemic times. Let's join our forces and let's try to find support for the things that we need to accomplish. And if you're going to search for PASAMBAP, you can channel your communications through PASAMBAP Official, our Facebook group. Okay, and if you're going to search for PASAMBAP, always add official at the end. Okay, because that will lead you to the real site of PASAMBAP, because a lot of organizations are imitating PASAMBAP already. And thank you very much to our officers, Rolf Campo, the Vice President, Ariel Constantine, our Secretary, Dr. Paul Atkins, our Treasurer, Ms. Malivik Makateg, our Auditor, and Mr. Satur Chamson, our Public Relations Officers. And these projects will be difficult to come by without these hardworking and passionate officers of PASAMBAP. So thank you very much to you guys. And again, see you next week, and have a good weekend. Take care of yourselves, and be clean at all times. Follow all the protocols. God bless, and good night.